And we are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is lacrosse playing Joe DeLeone. Good evening, good sir.
I knew that was going to come up. And look, in all seriousness, Tyler Buckner is welcome back at the University of Notre Dame to win a national championship with the lacrosse program. He, by the way, nationally was a highly recruited lacrosse player. So let's be serious
about
this.
What is this, Teen Wolf? Like, I mean,
what do you mean? He was an elite lacrosse prospect, and he chose football, which was a mistake.
No real man plays lacrosse.
That's bullshit. Come on, man. Have you watched a lacrosse game before? They hit lacrosse,
I've
man.
I've never from start to finish watched like I don't wake up in the morning and be like, God dog it, the lacrosse game's coming on today.
It's hockey on cleats. It is a physical sport. It is a very physical sport. It's more physical than baseball.
I see a dude like, excuse me?
There's no hitting in baseball. There's no physical contact in baseball.
A hard ball 103 miles an hour like Paul Skeens. What are you talking about?
No one's actually hitting each other. It's illegal to do that.
But they don't have the behemoths. There's no real behemoths running out there hitting one another.
There's some big dudes who play lacrosse.
Yeah, they're 5'7". They're white. Their last names are DeLeone.
That's not true. I'm not 5'7". That's not true. There's some dudes that are like 6'3" plus.
I'm not 5'7". That's all you took.
Put respect on me, man.
All right. Tyler Buckner doesn't enter his name into the portal for football, but does enter his name into the portal for lacrosse. We're not going to talk about that here tonight, but we do have a lot. No, I'm not talking about that. He will not. He will not enter the show. We talked about him too much. We will preview the playoff games: Bama versus Michigan, Washington versus Texas. Also, the Heisman candidates have just been announced: Jayden Daniels, excuse me, Michael Penix Jr. We could pretty much stop there because those would be the two. But Bo Nix and Marvin Harrison Jr., we'll touch on that a little bit. And Joe, the transfer portal day one has gone absolutely bananas.
All of the action, this is the craziest part. All of the action that has happened already today, which was nuts. Like there are some names Kyle McCord was unexpected. Dillon Gabriel was rumored, but also still a little bit unexpected considering what happened this season.
Even though I told you it happened on the show, but what do I know?
Yes. There's still more to come. Like there is, from loosely what I've heard, loosely from what you've heard, possibilities of some even bigger names hopping in the portal and going to some massive destinations. So we got to buckle up. This is only going to get crazier.
Yeah, I mean, look, Walter Nolan, also the big defensive lineman, also entered his name is going to enter his name into the transfer portal. Just a lot of names. Like you mentioned, this morning started off really crazy. At like 5:30 in the morning, Kyle McCord had entered his name into the transfer portal. So we'll talk about that, some possible destinations. I don't think that it stops there. There's still the rumors out there about KJ Jefferson, Juice Wells. I know, it's interesting. Remember how you poo-pooed on Bo Collins, the wide receiver from Clemson? All of a sudden, he's taking a visit to Notre Dame. Isn't that interesting?
Wait. I didn't poo-poo
You poo-pooed on him. You pooed on him all year. You pooed on him all year.
That's cap. I recognize that he was the best.
Like that. Don't you dare say that's cap. Don't say that.
I recognize that he was the best receiver for Clemson. Look, Notre Dame is going to scavenge all edges of the country to bring in as many wide receivers as possible. I think Chris Braswell is going to be on a visit. There was one other guy, and I'm blanking off the top. Juice Wells. I think that they're going to be bringing him on a visit. They're going to bring in as many receivers as possible, because they have to completely rebuild their receiver room. They have to do that. They've got some young guys that are still sticking around, some high 4 stars, some freshmen coming in that are very promising in the 2024 class, but still they have to do whatever they can. And Bo Collins, let's be real, was the number 1 receiver at Clemson. He's not a number 1 receiver. He's a good tertiary option if you have 2 other number 1 guys. I would argue Juice Wells, Bo Collins, and maybe Chris Braswell is a pretty good receiving room and much better than last year.
We'll see. We'll talk about that. We'll get to him. His name is written down on mine, but you have Cam Ward. I said all last week, Cam Ward at Ohio State makes the most sense, and here we are. All right, let's get rolling. Everybody do us a favor by hitting the like and share. If you're on Facebook, hit that like button, hit the share button, share to all your pages, share to all those social media groups. If you're listening, watching us on YouTube. Joe, coming up on 3,500 subscribers. If we're not there already, it's been
we're 3 away. We're 3 away right now.
Yeah, so if you hadn't subscribed right now, don't be a Rudy Poo. Hit that subscribe button and notification bell wherever you listen to podcasts, rate, review, and subscribe. Let's break down, preview the college football playoff. We do that next, and then we talk about the portal and how crazy it has been. Stay with us. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag. We're back. Hold. It's interesting because as we are coming out of the break, 4-star Texas safety Jalen Catalon has entered his name into the transfer portal as a grad transfer.
How many times is this kid going to transfer?
I think this is twice, right? He went from Arkansas to Texas, and now he's going to be a grad transfer. Look, he's not the most. I mean, listen, JT Daniels got more. It was in the transfer portal, which, by the way, he's retiring, wants to go into coaching. I mean, look, man. So,
yeah, that's crazy. Catalon, I don't know how much he really played down the stretch, but I guess he's not going to be available for the championship run.
Doesn't look like it. I hate when players do. Like, why would you go in the transfer portal when your team has a chance to go win a national title? Like, if you're going to be a grad transfer, then you can be a grad. You don't need the dates to be open, right? Like, you can be a grad. You can enter the portal as a grad transfer at any moment. Like, you don't need the window. So why he did that, I don't know. All right, let's talk a little college football playoff. Alabama and Michigan face off the Rose Bowl. I'm going to be a little honest with you here, Joe. I'm surprised that Bama and Michigan go to the Rose Bowl instead of the Sugar Bowl. And Washington, for the first time in like 90 years, this will be the first time that Washington's ever played in the Sugar Bowl. But nevertheless, Alabama versus Michigan. Joe, when you look at this game, when you look at this preview, when you look at this playoff game, how do you see it going down?
This is going to surprise Alabama fans because after the past couple of weeks, and also I see the comments, guys. I see the comments. Joe the hater. Joe is the biggest hater, the biggest Alabama hater. Look, I don't like Alabama. I'm not going to hide behind that. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I like Alabama. But if I am evaluating this game and I'm trying to accurately predict it, I think that these two teams match up with each other very closely. I don't think that one team is significantly better than the other. They both have deficiencies. They both have significant strengths on their defense, their defensive line, at linebacker. I think that the one thing, and this is one of the few times that I think I've done this all year long, I have to give Alabama the edge because of Nick Saban. I have to give him the edge because Jim Harbaugh has had these opportunities multiple times now. And what have we witnessed multiple times when he stepped up in these situations and played against teams in the college football playoff? Last year was his best opportunity to reach a national championship. One could argue it was a Herculean task to beat Georgia 2 years ago, but to lose to TCU, a team that got their asses whooped by Georgia, a team that you should have beaten, and you failed. I'm really focused, and I know we're going to dive deep on some other things, but that right now is my main key for this game is that Jim Harbaugh's lack of success in the playoff is something worth noting and paying attention to.
Eye test time. You ready? Or not eye test time, but blind reaction time. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Name this quarterback. One quarterback has 2,700 yards, 23 passing touchdowns, 6 interceptions. The other one has 2,600 passing yards, 19 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions.
I want to say JJ is the second one.
JJ McCarthy is the second one, but you wouldn't know that because a lot of people have said that Jalen Milroe, quote unquote, has been bad down the stretch. It's the complete opposite. Joe, I can make the argument, and I agree with you. Since the sign stealing scandal news broke, offensively, Michigan has taken a step back. And they've specifically taken a step back in the passing game. Now, it's interesting that you look at the last 3 games for Florida State from a passing yardage standpoint, they still have more passing yards than J.J. McCarthy, okay, and Michigan. But the bottom line is, for me, is it's pretty simple. Look, I know that Blake Corum and the boys do a really good job at running the football. I know that offensive line is good. They have not seen a team like this. They haven't seen the green grass athletes on the outside of DB. Joe, you have Kool-Aid McKinstry that goes down. All they do is put in a kid named Trey Amos who goes stupid. I don't think they've seen a dude like Dallas Turner. I think Dallas Turner is the best edge rusher in the game right now. After what I've seen over the last 5 weeks, him leading in sacks, pressures, and QB hits is all that I need to see. By the way, in 3 of those matchups, potentially faced what we would say a first or second round offensive tackle. He's gone off. But Jalen Milroe is the reason, along with Nick Saban, to your point, is why I would push all my chips in, okay, for Alabama. Not only that, I don't know if this Michigan team's ready because I've seen Harbaugh in these situations and he's lost. He's 1,000% lost. Everybody and their mama last week or Saturday, yourself included, I might add, but you weren't the only one. There was a lot of, don't cut your eyes at me like that, thought that Alabama was going to get their cheeks clapped. They didn't.
Yes.
They came out there. They established the line of scrimmage against a more physical football team than Michigan, in my opinion. Now, look, I think Michigan's got a better defensive line in the interior than Georgia does right now. I don't think it's going to stop anything because I watched the film today of the Georgia game, and I saw Booker multiple times and Proctor on double teams getting to the second level and destroying dudes on Georgia. Like, they are getting so much better along the offensive line. Joe, there's not one category for me one area for me that I don't think Alabama's better than. Yes, look, I am going to get abused by Michigan fans but for saying this. If you had to tell me right now which quarterback I'm taking Jalen Milroe over J.J. McCarthy right now. J.J.'s last 3 weeks has not been that good. Again, since the sign-stealing scandal, Joe, we gotta call it like it is. Offensively, they've taken a step back. They were, I think, top 45 in the country before that happened, and now when they're playing teams, they are struggling in the passing game. One last thing. Does Michigan really have a dude on the outside that can get open and be able to take on guys like Arnold, McKinstry, and Amos? Because I don't think they have the weapons on the outside to beat them.
So a couple things of that. I don't agree with your premise. I think that I'm leaning Alabama, but it's like 53-47. This is a slight lean. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that Alabama is going to win this game. It definitely will be a close game. I really see and believe that this will be a close, hard-fought football game. I actually believe that Ohio State's defense is not that far off, if not very, very close to this Alabama quality of defense. And we saw the way that they were able to, one, establish the run and dominate the line of scrimmage in that game. Now, Zach Sinter did go down, which is why I'm a little bit concerned, but that offensive line is still really good at establishing the run and being physical up front. I understand the concern of not having really any receivers that you can rely on or feel comfortable getting open against that secondary because it's phenomenal. But I believe that their tight ends, especially Colton Loveland, who is a fantastic athlete, is going to be really pivotal for this game because he is a very underrated tight end and could be a huge piece in their passing game. One of the best tight ends in the Big Ten that doesn't get enough recognition. I think that there is a map and a possibility for Michigan to win this football game. And it's what I said the other day. What does help Michigan in this situation is that they're going to have the most athletic linebacker core and the deepest defensive line that Alabama has faced in the current state. Georgia came into this game with injuries came
Hold
into the game
on.
with injuries and were lighter than usual.
Say that again.
Michigan, in the current state of their roster of teams that Alabama has faced, has the most athletic linebackers and the deepest defensive line. Dude, they're rotating.
Okay.
They're rotating a ton of players. They have two full
I-
front groups that they
I
rotate.
I disagree with that. I think it's Texas A&M. I mean, Joe, we got four first round defensive linemen on A&M's roster. Joe, we're about to talk about Walter Nolan. Is Walter Nolan a first round pick? Yes or no?
Yes, he's an elite football player, but I think that the Michigan defensive line is better coached and more consistent, because I saw games where Texas A&M got ran on. There were games where
they're top 5 in rushing defense.
I know that they were, but they showed inconsistencies throughout the year, and I feel like Michigan's defensive line has been the epitome of consistency. They shut down every run game that they faced in the most important games, might I add, against Ohio State and against Penn State. So if anyone steps up,
of running the football well before they played Michigan, and you know that.
They also had games where Travion Henderson exploded for like 100+ yards. Against Wisconsin and other teams in the Big Ten. He had some pretty big games, dude. He had some pretty big games.
Well, I'm glad you brought up Wisconsin, because I have their stats right here. By the way,
why
you plays Wisconsin in their bowl game. Did you know that Wisconsin rush defense is 44th in the country?
It's pretty good.
Oh, they're killing it. Yeah, they're killing it. All right, let me bring this up to your point. One point I do agree with you on. Okay, I do agree. Defensively, this could be, I'm not going to say best. I still give that to A&M. They're top 3. Like, I mean, I don't think that there's Bama has seen this type of D-line before. Maybe not the same. They've seen Georgia, they've seen A&M. They're battle-tested, right? Here's the thing for me. You brought up Ohio State, and I was so curious last night after we got off the show. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go rewatch that Michigan-Ohio State game. And I'm sitting there watching it, and I'm thinking to myself, like, yeah, okay, Michigan's getting a lot of, dirty yardage. They're not running the football at a high effective rate that I thought that, when you think of Michigan right now, they'd be doing. Blake Corum had the longest run of the day with 22 yards. Alex Orji had the 20-yard one, but that's not traditional of what they want to do. Joe, the biggest thing for me in that game is they ran the ball for 4 yards a carry against Ohio State. And what makes it different is Alabama can put 4 dudes on an island in their secondary and play man-to-man and load the box up, and J.J. McCarthy is not, I promise you, well, I'm not going to say is not, it would absolutely, what's the word I'm looking for here? Shock the ever-living hell out of me that if they had the dudes on the outside along with J.J. McCarthy throwing the football to beat Alabama, I cannot envision that happening. You know what they're going to do? They're damn near going to do what they just did to Georgia. They're going to load up the box, and they're going to play bump and run man-to-man coverage on the outside and say, beat us. Now, I think that Georgia, does have some better weapons, a.k.a. Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey, but I don't think that there are dudes on the outside. Like, for example, because Kool-Aid McKinstry is going to be back. All right. Trey is going to be there. The Tyrion Arnold's going to be there. Joe, I get what you're saying, but the biggest differential, in reference to what a team has not saw all year, Michigan has not seen a more complete team defensively than Alabama, because you can talk about Ohio State, but the problem with Ohio State, and when I look at Alabama, Joe, when I look at passing yards allowed, Alabama's top 25. They're top 25 in everything. Ohio State is not.
I don't think, though, that there is this wide gap that they're going to be stepping into a situation that they've never seen before. Look, but here's the big difference, though.
They have not been. They're not more battle tested than Bama is.
I don't disagree with that. They played a really cupcake schedule. Like, we have to sit here and be realistic about this. But I still believe, though, that there is what hindered Georgia, as I talked about yesterday, that pissed Bama fans off, is I pointed out the injuries and the banged up receivers that were playing, and then them not having really any depth behind. Dillon Bell was the only guy that they had, and they covered his ass tight as hell. I don't see anyone on Michigan that's going to really get open. I think Loveland is going. I think that Loveland is going to be impactful and can have some really big plays. But the big difference is that as soon as Amarius Mims went out, they couldn't run the football and they didn't have that identity. That has not been their identity all year long. They are not the same level of rushing team as Michigan is. And I think that I still saw, despite some of their offensive issues against Iowa, they still had success running the football and picking up big chunk plays against one of the better defenses in the country and in the Big Ten.
Though, Joe.
I know that they're not. But if they try to load the box and they want you to go hat for hat, one-on-one, and they're going to go single man coverage on the outside, if they're going to do that, if a team in the country that's going to find success barreling downfield, running the football, it's going to be Michigan. Michigan is the one team that has successfully done that when their back's been against the wall that they've turned to it.
Did Georgia? Because you can make the Georgia couldn't do it, and you can make the argument that both teams' best offensive linemen were out. You had the best offensive lineman for Georgia that went out. You have the best offensive lineman for Michigan that's out. And you know what Georgia could not do? Like, legitimately just couldn't do it.
But I know what you're saying. No, but what I am answering your question. What I was just getting at is the fact that Georgia's offense has been a very balanced approach. Okay. So the minute that Amarius Mims goes out, they're not used to having to make adjustments and have to solely rely on running the football.
Yes, they did, because Mims missed 4 games on the year. That's
not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is that when they can't connect in the passing game, they haven't had to make a heavy pivot like that. Michigan's been doing this all year. They did it against Ohio State and they did it against Penn State. They have made the adjustment and said, you know what, we're just going to rely on the run game and we're going to beat you with it. They did it against Maryland when they played that against
Bama. They can't. They're not going to be able to do that against them.
Let me counter this point. Has Bama faced a rushing attack this dominant all year long?
Yeah, it's called LSU.
They don't run the football the same way that Michigan does.
Sure.
They're not an under center downhill.
Spreading dudes out and running the football has nothing to do with zone blocking schemes and the guard and center getting to the second level. When you're in that box, not a goddamn thing changes.
How did Alabama do against that offense?
Hold on. If you want to go there, not shit changes when you got the 6 guys in the box getting to the second level. Like, it doesn't. And you know what? I really saw a better offensive line, in my opinion. The Georgia Bulldogs get bullied. Joe, they got Van Pran that's up there. They got the left guard that's going to be a first-round dude. And then the left tackle, I think that he's more of a little bit of a project, but he has been better. Whatever his name is. They have a better offensive line statistically in running the football. And, Joe, if I would have come out here and said Alabama would push one of these teams around, Michigan or Georgia, who would you have picked?
Wait, so if Alabama was going to,
I told you that Alabama would push around one of these two teams.
You're not going to like this. I would have said Georgia.
Oh well, I think you're smoking crack.
Wait, let me ask you this though, and I was just trying to say this. What happened when LSU, who was the best rushing attack that they've seen, what happened in that game? Was that not one of the worst defensive performances? They shut them down.
The only reason that they ran the football was because of Jaden. By the way, the most effective rushing attack outside of a quarterback in the country going into that game against LSU was LSU at 7 yards a carry. 7, with their running backs and everybody else not named Jaden Daniels.
We have to though acknowledge that the weakest game that they played was against Jaden Daniels, and I know that JJ McCarthy is not anywhere near the same level of quality of quarterback,
but he can move.
He can move. And I wrote this down, and this is my final thought on this game. For Michigan to win, and again, I need to remind everyone, I'm still picking Alabama. But if Michigan finds a way to win, I will not be surprised. And it's going to require, and we've heard that JJ has been a little banged up or whatever he's been dealing with. We haven't gotten a lot of transparency on it. In a month, he'll probably be fully healthy. If he gives me the same quality of game that he had against Ohio State last year, we know that's in there. We know that's, he's capable of producing a game like that. He just hasn't replicated it this season. If he plays that way, they win the football game.
I don't disagree with you. If I said that I didn't say it was going to be a blowout.
No, I know, but
Okay,
you still
like, I
said
didn't
that you
say
made it
there
seem
was-
like Alabama's a guarantee to win, though.
But I didn't say that. I never came out here and said Alabama's winning guaranteed.
You hinted at it.
But I didn't say it. All right. Here's my final point. You ready?
Okay. Yes.
I've seen Nick Saban have a month. Good luck.
That's what I meant off the top. That's exactly what I meant.
Good luck. Okay, because Joe, you know, arguably one of my better friends in this business. Okay, and what we do. He sent something to me on the iBlake that Saban's pissed. So all I'm gonna say is I'm gonna take the Tide by 10. Even and look, listen to me. To LSU fans that are in here, I have no pleasure whatsoever picking them. I'm just trying to be as real as I can. Like, I freaking hate picking them. I hate it. So just so we understand each other.
I think if they win, it's by 3 or 4, something like that. I don't think it's by 10.
They clapping them Wolverine cheeks. Want to get to Washington, Texas?
Let's do it.
Washington and Texas, the Huskies and the Longhorns face off. Joe, what do you think would win in a fight, a Husky or Bevo, the Longhorn?
If there was a pack of Huskies, maybe. I think a singular Husky wouldn't fare too well. I think that's an uphill battle.
It's a very, very big uphill battle. But for the first time in history, I told the Washington fans this yesterday, we will, if you want to know places to eat in New Orleans, for the first time, Joe, Washington is going to the Sugar Bowl to face Texas, who has been to the Sugar Bowl a couple of times. Joe, I got to admit, both of these teams have been a big talking point all year on this show. All year, okay? Whether I do this, we're back, or me talking about how I just don't think that Washington is a complete team, nor do I think that they are. I keep doubting them every week, okay? And they keep proving me wrong. Joe, these are arguably the 2 worst secondaries that we've ever had in the playoff. Washington is 120th in the country in passing yards allowed. Texas is 95th. I think that Michael Penix and the boys, McMillan, Ondunze, Polk, and the boys, are going to light Texas up with their secondary. They have not shown the ability to be able to stop dudes with the dudes in their back 5. But, man, why do I lean that Texas is just going to be more physical on both lines of scrimmage?
Blake, you've made actually, I'm going to say it's not just you. Everyone who has picked against Washington has made the same mistake. They have come in every single game saying this singular team has this better, or particularly when we talked about Oregon twice, and everybody talked about Oregon twice. Those who picked Oregon said that they're going to be more physical up front. They're going to come downhill. They're going to establish the run, all of that stuff. And it doesn't matter because of the way that Washington plays. And I have compared it to a fast break basketball team. That is how they play. They're quick to get the ball out. They attack downfield. They have the best receiving core in college football in terms of production. The 3 best receivers in college football. And when one guy's not open, somebody else is. That ability to stress defenses has taken away that ability to be physical, in my opinion. Because the minute that they go up by a score or so, you're trying to play catch up. You can't be physical when you're trying to play catch up. And that's what we saw happen with Oregon twice. And that's what we've seen in all the other games where they've tried to get physical with them.
Yeah, but they ain't seen a rush defense like this, though. You got a top 3 rushing defense in Texas. And look, I came out here yesterday talking about Dillon Johnson and how he's just exploded. I mean, look, man, Dillon Johnson has 1,100 yards on the year, 14 rushing touchdowns. He has really picked it up. He has looked really good. But, Joe, I just don't know with that front 7 of Texas that they're going to be able to establish any form of a running game. I'm not telling them to bail on it. I'm not telling them not to run the football because I think they can still run the football a little bit. The only way that I see Washington getting over the top here, Joe, they're going to have to expose Texas' secondary like everybody else has.
Yeah, they just got to play their game. Don't overthink it.
They got to play their game. And I think they can do it. But here's another thing, too. Joe, statistically speaking, Washington's secondary is not as good as what we just saw at Oklahoma State. And we just saw what Quinn Ewers did in the first half. They have dudes all over the place. Now, what is Xavier Worthy's health going to be like? You know, that's a whole different question. But, Joe, they got dudes all over the place. I think the young back, the freshman back, number 7.
Cedric Baxter is the really good back that they have, the freshman.
Okay, so Cedric Baxter. Did you see that kid last week?
He played a great game.
Connie Mitchell going off. The Sanders kid, the tight end. Joe, he is a physical nightmare for anybody on that team for Washington.
Great player.
So when I just go pro versus con, I look, I think that this could be a 3-point game. I'm not going to pick it yet because I know the Huskies fans don't want me to do it.
Boo.
I just don't know. Even though that they've played Oregon, I don't know if they've played a team more physical than this. I don't think that they have. Oregon's a good football team, but we literally saw an Alabama team who got pushed around by Texas, right? In week 2. That's what everybody talked about, was just how physical Texas was. We're about to find out.
I get that, and I understand that. First of all, the availability of Xavier Worthy is going to be really critical for them being able to keep up with Washington. Because if they said that he's going to be fine, that's the expectation, but he was in a boot pretty quickly. The x-rays might be negative, but it does not mean that he's not dealing with a bad ankle or foot injury. And that for a wide receiver, it's critical. You're not going to, just going to be a decoy out there running in. Just Adonai Mitchell is not going to beat Washington. You need full strength.
But they have the Sanders kid who they've gone to in critical situations.
Yeah.
And they got dudes in that room now. They have dudes. I'm not saying they don't need Xavier Worthy, but Joe, if there's a team in the playoff right now that you don't need him against, it's this secondary.
The big thing for me, though, if Texas wins this game, they can't do what Oregon did and be completely full of themselves and say, you know what? We're more physical. We're bigger than them up front. We're just going to dominate them and play our game. You can't do that shit. You just can't, because Penix is going to expand the pocket and he's going to find ways to connect with his receivers. He has such a great pocket awareness, and the ball comes out way too quick that even when he's off platform, he's going to find ways to connect with them. You have to send pressure. You have to be aggressive. And they've shown a willingness to do that, but they cannot come into this game and think, oh, we got them. We're going to rush 4. We can do this. You are going to get burned just like Oregon did twice and like every other team that's gone up against them. You have to send pressure, because we've seen Michael Penix, when he's got pressure in his face, and he's got a lot of pressure in his face, he will make a mistake. He will turn the ball over. He will throw the ball away, and they will get a 3 and out. You have to be aggressive.
I don't want to pick against them again because I have so much.
I think Washington fans want you to pick against them.
They want me to pick against them. I might just use reverse psychology and then get pissed off at me. You're right. I do think that you just can't go in there and think that you're going to bully them, right? Like you can't. Don't be that naive. But here's the truth, though, Joe. I don't think Sark is that type of dude. Like Sark has more skins on the wall, okay, to know like, hey man, this team is 13-0. Teams have tried to bully them and they couldn't. Maybe we should play a little finesse. Now we got to run the football, but we got to do what we do. I think that they do ultimately, because I just think that, Joe, at the end of the day, okay, now I just think Texas is just the overall better team, and I say that every week. But is
it really like vastly so much better?
No,
because their secondary stinks. Their secondary stinks.
A 3-point game. But here's the thing for Washington. You can clip this one if you want to. Here's the thing for Washington for me, Joe. Having McMillan back, this receiving core is just insanely good. And I don't know if you give this team a month, that they don't pick you apart defensively. Like I
Right.
think, and look, we saw, and how we've gone this long without mentioning this game. We saw this game in a bowl game last year. And what did Washington do?
Alamo Bowl rematch. No, you're right.
Alamo Bowl rematch. But what did they do? Joe, I've heard from Texas fans all year long that this secondary was good. What game am I watching? Like, what am I watching? Because I see one of the worst secondaries in college football right now. They don't
have
not
the corners.
good. They do not have the, and I got to tell you, the safeties are young and they will be better. But Joe, for crying out loud, sometimes I'm watching film and asking, what are you doing? Like, you got to give help to the corner. That is your job. I don't know if Penix doesn't go in there and eat. I think that they're going to go in there and eat Texas alive, dude.
I think that he's going to have a phenomenal game. I keep seeing a lot of people saying that Texas got the better matchup. I completely disagree. This is the best possible circumstance. Yeah. Because I would
matchup for Texas.
Depending on if Washington wins, having to play Michigan or Alabama, like Alabama's going to give them a real challenge because they can actually man up with them on the outside and just load the box and come after Michael Penix. And then the other side, like Michigan, can do a very similar play style. So yeah, no, this is the better matchup here is for Washington, assuming that they don't make a bunch of silly mistakes and Sark doesn't call a crazy cooked up game. I still am going to ride with the dogs because I've done it all season long.
I'm not picking it yet.
My picks are in Alabama, Washington. My picks are in.
You know who else another lefty that lit up Texas?
Dillon Gabriel.
So let's do this. You know Dillon Gabriel's in the portal?
He is in the portal.
Listen to me. The best offense at the time that they played them, Texas, was Oklahoma.
They didn't play so great.
They didn't play so great. So all I'm going to say is, Joe, I'm not picking it yet because I'm literally thinking about picking Washington. But the bottom line comes, dude, if you get beat by two left-handed quarterbacks in a year, you should quit football all in general.
Hey, man, that doesn't matter. Two of the most talented, best college quarterbacks this year are lefty. That's if they lost to Max Johnson, I think we'd be having a different conversation.
Do you forget I feel like you forget all the time that Jaden Daniels' life exists on this planet.
He's not lefty.
Oh, I thought you said they're both one of the two best quarterbacks in the country.
Well, they're two of the best. I'm saying, though, that like we can't discredit them for being lefty. Yeah.
Hey, don't make fun of Max Johnson, man. He's going to North Carolina with Mac.
Do you think that he's not gonna be a first round pick?
What a drop off.
Drake. Dude, they went
Max Johnson.
Sam Howell to Drake May, which is a progression, and both are NFL starting quarterbacks, to Max Johnson.
What if Max Johnson goes to North Carolina and just absolutely feasts?
I mean, you can believe that. I'm not gonna.
I'm not gonna either. I've seen them up close and personal. All right, let's do this, Joe. A massive day in the transfer portal. Where's some of these guys going? So we're going to talk about the big day in the transfer portal. We do that next. Let's talk about our good friends over at Home Field Apparel. Don't go anywhere. We're back next.
Ruffino and Joe Show is brought to you by Home Field Apparel, which is the best, without a doubt, premium collegiate apparel brand that is out there. They have over 150 different colleges that you can choose from, whether you're an Illinois fan or a Rutgers fan, maybe you're an LSU fan like Blake, or maybe you're an Alabama fan. Whatever it is, even Idaho, they have so many different designs for so many different football programs that I can guarantee you're going to find some great stuff to help root for your favorite team. I've already gotten my Notre Dame stuff. Blake has his LSU stuff. Make sure you head on over to homefieldapparel.com to check out your team's collection of clothing apparel that they have on the website. And when you do so, when you check out, make sure you use promo code RuffinoJoe to get 15% off your order. That is RUFFINO, Ruffino Joe. Head on over to homefieldapparel.com and get your college gear today.
Joe, I got some massive breaking news. It's not hit the airwaves, but I have been told that I can share it with you. You ready? It's massive. Sources tell Ruffino and Joe show that the University of Florida State has formally. No, I'm just joking. I look at your face.
You're a troll. You wanted me to make the face again. That's what you wanted.
I wanted you to make the face again. You didn't make it. Okay. By the way, Ryan Clark's son, ESPN Ryan Clark's son, Jordan Clark, just committed to your school, Notre Dame. Speaking of the transfer.
Oh, wait, that's also Ryan. So we have Ike Taylor's son and Ryan Clark's son. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, got the lineage. The transfer portal. Okay, you just completely ruined my beginning for the video.
Sorry.
What are you doing? The transfer portal opened up today, and my God, Joe, it just completely did not. What's the word I'm looking? Didn't disappoint. 5:30 in the morning, I'm up and awake, tweeting on Ruffino and Joe show. Kyle McCord is in the portal. Then you had last night guys like Walter Nolan, Dante Morris in the portal, Cam Ward, formerly of Incarnate Word, Washington State. Is he going to Ohio State? Joe, we've had a lot of guys enter the portal today in the last couple of days. I guess, what are your thoughts on some of these guys that have entered the transfer portal?
Yeah, just general quick takeaways before we dive in maybe on some of these guys specifically. I just see that there's a huge market for quarterbacks, and it makes sense. I think that we're in a time where this is why the transfer portal is great. I don't really care for that as much for these position players that end up entering, because I think there's less of a reason to. You're on a good team, or you're just maybe your head coach is leaving, whatever. But the quarterbacks, if you're not on the field and you're not playing, your head coach is leaving, there's a young guy up and coming, hop in the portal, go find a new opportunity. We've seen so many guys that are going to point to the fact that the 3 quarterbacks that are at the Heisman Trophy ceremony were all transfers. So I think it makes sense. Kyle McCord could go completely rebuild his career. He was a former 5-star. Cam Ward could play his way into a first-round pick if he makes Cam Ward will be, dude, he is one of the most physically gifted quarterbacks in the country. He's just been on a pretty mediocre team.
Continue.
There are a lot of opportunities for a bunch of these quarterbacks, I think, to make some big waves and really impact the landscape of college football.
I think guys like Will Shepard, who we won't talk about, the wide receiver from Vandy, is going to make a lot of noise. I think he goes to one of the Mississippi schools as it looks at, and look, all this changes.
But that's the big white kid, right?
No, that's Humphrey. The big Shepard is kind of the mixed kid, number 14, was went stupid 2 years ago when he actually had a quarterback. But look, I think there are a handful of guys here, Joe, that entered the portal today that are massive to me. Now, last week I told you on the show, and look, it felt right. Cam Ward going to Ohio State makes so much sense. Why he would not pick to go to Ohio State would blow my mind. He instantly makes them more of a contender than people realize because he's that good. If I'm Ohio State, I'm backing the Brinks truck up to him, and he look. You know who he is? He's maybe even a more polished at the moment Troy Smith. You've had a dude like this. His comp for me was Troy Smith in college. When I saw him at Incarnate Word, I talked to the offensive coordinator at Incarnate Word and the DC that was at Southeastern when they played each other. I'm talking to the DC at Southeastern where I graduated from. I'm like, this dude looks like Troy Smith. He goes, hey, that's not a bad comp. And then he just went absolutely stupid that day. He, to me, at the current moment, is the biggest player in the portal. Everybody wants to talk about Dante Moore, all these other players. Cam Ward's more proven than anybody. Now, you could make the argument Walter Nolan, if he gets to the right spot, could be that guy, the Texas A&M defensive lineman. But those two lead the class right now for me.
Yeah, Cam Ward, I'm really focused on. And you see some of these lists, I saw Aiden Childs was ahead of him. Plain and simple, not only is he the most physically gifted quarterback that's entered the portal, he is also the most proven. And I look at the fact that Washington State didn't really have a lot of receiving options, and he still put up some insane passing statistics. They almost beat Washington because of his performance.
That's right.
See a guy that has a Patrick Mahomes type arm. Like, he has a huge cannon of an arm, and he can fit the ball into some very difficult, tight windows. You put him into Ryan Day's offense, and you move on from Kyle McCord, who was just slightly above average. Yeah, you're getting somebody who's physically gifted to take advantage of a creative downfield offense that has a loaded receiver room, assuming that most of those other young guys don't enter the transfer portal. Ohio State needs the firepower to beat Michigan, and this is the firepower. They absolutely need to go after him. I also wouldn't be shocked if USC doesn't get into the mix, because you could see a lot of similar traits between Cam Ward and Caleb Williams. So I think that those are probably the most likely. But regardless, this is a kid who could transfer and be immediately in the Heisman conversation and put a team in the national championship conversation.
Walter Nolan is the biggest name non-quarterback that's in the portal right now. Joe, why do I feel like this kid's going to Georgia or Bama?
I mean, that would make the most sense. I think if he was smart, he's going to go to a team that's got an elite defensive line coach, an opportunity to lead a defensive line unit. I also would assume that based on his previous recruitment, he's probably going to rely on sticking in the SEC. Or isn't he from Tennessee?
He was in Memphis, northern Mississippi. Then, like, in high school, he moved to Knoxville. I'm also told that Tennessee is going to get a really strong look and going to, do what they got to do NIL-wise to get the kid in Knoxville. Which, by the way,
that'd be stupid if he was on that defensive line.
That defensive line with him added, bro, that would be sick. Look, dude, he is a game changer. Now, he doesn't have the stats to go along with it. Joey had 8.5 tackles for loss. He was a game wrecker. He didn't get the sacks. I think he had 4 on the year. Dude, he's a number one, day one. You pay the kid to come here, 1-year rental, get in here and make a massive impact to your program. That is who Walter Nolan is.
Yeah, he is, for good reason, was one of the highest recruited defensive linemen, and it's not one of these.
He's the number one player in the country, wasn't he? And when it was
yeah, I believe, depending on the outlet, but I believe so. The point is here, though, is it's not like one of those guys that comes out, is the number one recruit, and then doesn't live up to the hype, and now he's transferring. This guy was a wrecking ball on one of the best defensive lines in the country, and now he's looking for a new home. I think that Georgia makes a lot of sense. But the Tennessee thing, man, to get him to stay home, and he'd probably be even more comfortable being near his family, assuming that they're still there in Tennessee. I just can't see him going outside of the SEC. The one that could make sense is USC, because their defense sucks, and they're probably looking to
I don't think he wants to go out. I don't think he wants to go out there.
The checkbook says otherwise.
Yeah, but the checkbook's going to be about the same everywhere he goes. He can dictate what he wants.
True.
Look, I'm going to talk about this kid because, look, another name. So, Joe, I talked about this when Jeff Lebby took the Mississippi State head coaching job. I threw it in there. Dude had Mississippi State fans just for whatever reason, and Oklahoma fans who, by the way, I didn't know Oklahoma fans ever found our show because they just, they've been so quiet all year. But nevertheless, can I tell you what it might not be the biggest name in the portal, or it might not even make the head waves of the offseason in reference to this kid going there. Dillon Gabriel going with Jeff Lebby to Mississippi State instantly helps them. Like, they might go 6-6, they might go 7-5, but he already knows the offense. He's instantly going to make it in the sense of like, hey, man, you can't really look past them because he knows that offense like the back of his hand. You're going to have to compete with him if Dillon Gabriel goes to Mississippi State.
I understand all that, and I know that he's followed Jeff Lebby twice now, because I believe he left UCF. He was with him at UCF, and then he left to go to – he's followed him once. But he's worked with him at 2 different schools, the 2 other schools that he played at. I get that, but you would think, though, that Dillon Gabriel – and I understand why he's leaving. His offensive coordinator's gone, and Jackson Arnold is probably going to get the nod, and it's better for him just to, move on. And some would have thought he would have tested the NFL waters. But I don't know. If I'm Dillon Gabriel, I'm trying to go somewhere I can win. I'm trying to go somewhere that I didn't get the job done in Oklahoma. because Jackson Arnold's going to start over him, man. They're going to start the kid over him. He's not going to get
probably not protected in that starting spot because Jeff Lebby's not there. You're probably right.
Right. He's used so much of his eligibility. They don't want to scare off Jackson Arnold, who looked good in a little bit of time. And I'm sure that they think that he's ready to go. They don't want to lose Jackson Arnold. They don't want to put themselves in that position to lose him. They're going to start him. If I'm him, and the one that was rumored, and they're actually the two that were rumored, we saw we saw Oregon and we saw USC. I think both of those make a ton of sense. I like the Oregon one the most because of the fact that he sees what Bo Nix did. He goes to an offense where it's very dink and dunk. It's very simple. It's get the ball out quick, and he fits a lot of that criteria. Very decisive, reactive, get the ball out. He doesn't need a big arm to stretch the field like he would if he was playing in that USC offense. So I like the idea of him ending up at Oregon.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Were you shocked to see that Lincoln Riley went and did an in-home visit with Will Howard?
I find it hilarious that's the transition, because he's so immobile. To go from Baker, who had good pocket awareness, to Kyler, who was incredibly elusive, to Spencer Rattler, who moves really well, and then to Caleb Williams, who's one of the most elusive quarterbacks in college football history, to go to the biggest statue that we saw last year in Will Howard. Yeah, I think it's insane. I think that's ridiculous.
Why do you think he's doing that?
Maybe he wants to just try something completely different. Maybe he wants a more relaxed personality that's going to be less, front-facing camera and all that shit.
So you're saying Caleb Williams was back-facing?
Sorry, I'm saying that he doesn't want somebody
you completely missed what I was trying. You completely missed what I tried to say. He was looking over the camera like that. You're doing like that.
I'm going to ignore that.
I thought that was really interesting. Will Howard's in there. Let's not talk about him. Riley Leonard, you're the guy that y'all tampered with over there at Notre Dame. Surprise!
All right, forget Cam Ward was tampered with, so let's not all these guys are being tampered with. And I even messaged you not messaged you. I told you before pre-show some guy that possibly could be huge that was getting tampered with, or is going to be tampered with. Look, Riley Leonard ending up at Notre Dame is huge. Because Notre Dame,
it's not official. Be careful in saying that. It's not official yet, is it?
It's not. If he ends up at Notre Dame, every site is reporting the crystal ball to Notre Dame. So let's understand the likelihood of this. If he ends up at Notre Dame, it provides a huge progressive step forward, because it feels like over the past couple of years, the quarterbacks that they've had have not been very mobile. They have not been very elusive. And Riley Leonard is a really good runner of the football, and he understands how to extend plays, and he didn't have the receivers that he could have at Notre Dame this upcoming year. I think that their offense can take a serious step forward. I wasn't totally I was excited about Sam Hartman. I understood that it was a huge accomplishment to get Sam Hartman, but I was a little wary of what was capable of being accomplished because of the receivers. I think that Riley Leonard helps him take another step forward.
I think it's going to be the same old, same old.
You stink.
Joe, I'm just being honest. You hate me for this, but I think it's going to be is he going to run a little bit more? Yeah. Are they going to not be able to push the ball down the field? Probably. Listen, there are teams that we have seen that have relied strictly on an all wide receiver transfer portal class, or DB or linebacker or D-line. Their name is USC. And it completely backfired on them. Backfired. They did that for their offensive line. Backfired. They did it for their D-line. Backfired.
But Notre Dame, the key thing here is that Notre Dame isn't trying to do that for their offensive and defensive line, which are even harder positions to reload at.
You have a whole portal class of our whole room full of portal dudes. Doesn't work like that.
They still have homegrown guys, though. It's not like it's just purely
Youngblood?
I don't know the back end receivers in the group, but I know that they've recruited high 4 stars, and despite those that have entered the portal, they still have some talented bodies. I'm optimistic. I'm going to be blindly optimistic. Do you think, by the way, before we get out of here, do you think LSU should stick with Nussmeier? Or they should bring somebody in to
They're bringing
compete with him?
somebody in behind.
They are?
To sit behind him. Yeah.
No, you don't think that they should bring in some pure competition? So you're all in on Nussmeier?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why wouldn't I be?
We just haven't seen him play.
We ain't seen a lot of guys play. Bro, I saw Kyle McCord play. He ain't better than Nuss.
Yeah, but one could argue that they could be if they want to go right back in. If they want to improve, one could argue that they should be in the market for Cam Ward. Not wait before you cut me off. That's not an improvement over Jaden Daniels. I'm not saying that. But if they want to improve over Nussmeier and they want to improve and win more
it would
games,
fit the style of play of what they want to do. Yes, I agree.
I think they should bring somebody in.
They are.
Drew Pine.
I know you say that, but I'm gonna
Brian Kelly recruited him.
Well, I'm just gonna tell you, they're not looking for a starter.
I know that they're not.
Okay.
Wait, you know who else would? You know who else he recruited? Cade McNamara.
You know who else he recruited?
Who?
Kenny Pickett.
Okay. All right.
He did.
Wait. Kate.
Remember, your boy from Pitt said that Brian Kelly was tampering. They said,
I also had gone good authority that it happened. Yeah.
Do you have? And he said, I have a voicemail from 3 years ago.
Yeah, I know for a fact
the kid was in high school. And he said, oh.
He also tampered with him. I know for a fact that he tampered with him.
Y'all tamper with everybody.
Brian Kelly tampered with him, though, so we can't act like Brian Kelly's.
If it's strictly Brian Kelly thing, then why's Marcus Freeman doing it?
I'm not saying it's true. I'm not saying it's strictly his, but you bring up the tampering thing for Notre Dame quarterbacks and whatnot. I know for a fact that Brian Kelly has done it. I've spoken to somebody whatever. We don't need to go down that rabbit hole.
Oh, I spoke to somebody. Yeah, okay. What? Notre Dame is tamper you.
They're not. Every other school in the country tampers. It's a free-for-all.
Very quickly, 1 minute. Kyle McCord, go.
Michigan State or Iowa?
I agree. You know what's crazy? I think he would actually not be that bad at Iowa. But he fits Michigan State more.
I think he'd be really good at Michigan State, actually.
I do too. Be interested to see who Iowa brings in as their OC. Watch it be instead of Brian Ferentz Jr., watch it be Chad Ferentz Jr.
I mean, he's got other kids. I don't know if they're in coaching, but that would be hilarious.
Would be very hilarious. See you guys on Wednesday. Y'all have a good night. Peace.